The reason I support reparations is because reparations carry moral force. You know, Catholics go to confession, and Jews on the day of Yom Kippur, the holiest day of the year, is the Day of Atonement. That is a spiritual principle. Until you clean something up, it will continue to cause effects. So you have to deal with things on the level of cause. The United States has an original character defect, and that is racism. Now, I think the average American has not been properly educated about the real history of race in the United States, because we are decent people, we are a good people, and we have a sense of justice. However, too many of us aren't really clear about exactly what went down here. In 1619, the first slaves were brought to the United States, and the slaves were not freed until 1865. 2.5 centuries of slavery. Now, at the end of slavery, General Tecumseh Sherman said that all former slaves would receive 40 acres and a mule. So this is important. Reparations were promised at the time. What happened, unfortunately, in most of the cases, those 40 acres and a mule were not given. It was understood that people who obviously had not been part of the economy, they had been enslaved persons, were now freed. But as Martin Luther King would say 100 years later, freed to what? We know what they were freed from, but what were they freed to? As soon as the federal troops left in 1877, white legislatures throughout the South passed what were called the Black Code Laws. Now, the Black Code Laws were vicious. They were passed to ensure subpar economic, social, and political opportunities for black people. Now, with that, you've got another 100 years of what today we would call domestic terrorism. What do you call lynchings, if not domestic terror? What do you call the Ku Klux Klan, if not domestic terrorists? What do you call institutionalized white supremacy and segregation, if not domestic terror? So we're talking about 2.5 centuries of slavery, followed by another 100 years of institutionalized violence against black people in America. So the issue of reparations, first of all, let's look at this in some historical context. In 1988, Ronald Reagan signed the Civil Liberties Act, where we gave between $20,000 and $22,000 to every surviving prisoner from the Japanese internment camps. And since 1945, at the end of World War II, Germany has paid $89 billion in reparations to Jewish organizations. Now, that doesn't mean the Holocaust didn't happen, but it has gone far towards establishing reconciliation between Germany and the Jews of Germany and the rest of Europe. That is why I want reparations for slavery. There is an inherent acknowledgement of harm that was done, a debt that was owed, and a willingness to pay it. Yes, things have gotten better in many, many ways. And the whole issue of reparations is simply that we have not finished. We have not yet completed the job of full reconciliation. And I'm not saying reparations are going to fix everything, because we also know how much inner work has to be done, issues of privilege, etc. But it will go a far way. My plan is to appoint a reparations council. And this reparations council would be made up of black leaders representing American descendants of slaves. And there are many, such as Professor Sandy Darity at Duke University, people who have been doing scholarly work for years on this subject. My proposal is that there be between $200 and $500 billion that would be paid by the U.S. government over a period of 20 years, dispersed to this council, for them to disperse according to their decisions, as long as the stipulation is that this money is to be spent on projects of educational and economic renewal. And I have been in this conversation long enough to know that whatever number you say, there are going to be some who say it's too much, and there are going to be some who say it's not enough. Because if you actually do the math from 40 acres and a mule in 1865, and you equate that to today, that would be trillions of dollars. That's not politically feasible, but I think $200 to $500 billion is. We have younger generations who understand the very concept of historical trauma, so that we understand that these are psychological and emotional wounds as well as economic wounds, and with the paying of reparations, we can go far in our time to make a difference.